Hi students, welcome to video lecture on organization, development and change management. This course is for second MBA students. So, this is Kishan Verma. So, I am going to deal this particular course for this particular semester. So, let us see the let us start with course outcomes. So, this will help us what you are going to learn from our organization development and change. So, we had 4 different outcomes which you are going to achieve at the end of this particular course. So, the first one tells about execution of OD process and its professional. So, you will be able to learn what was the organizational development process, and you can also build a career like a professional career with the help of this particular subject. So, at the end of this particular course you will be knowing like what was the OD process and how it can be used as a professional of us, right. So, the second one tells about implementation of OD interventions and their effectiveness in the organization. So, like intervention plays a very important role in entire organization development and change concept. So, you will be able to understand the major interventions, like we had 4 interventions in our subject, like human resource intervention, human process intervention, techno-structural intervention and organizational change intervention. So, you will be able to understand how that can be implemented in the organization. So, this will give you a lot of change, the perceptual change from a normal scenario to present scenario, right. So, you will be understanding some interventions which will be helping us to undergo any problem or to undergo any solution for the problem in the organization. Then the third course outcome tells about diagnosis model. So, like applying the diagnosis model to various organized scenarios. So, like understanding problem and analyzing problem, giving interpreting for that particular problem is very important. So, here you will be able to understand how to evaluate all the issues when organization change happens in the organization, right. So, we had actually 3 different models which will be coming in our subject, like individual, group and like for entire organization. So, we will be able to understand how that has to be differentiated from one to another. And the last outcome is like developing a model by understanding an organization development process. So, finally, you will be knowing certain procedure of how to solve any sort of problem in the organization, right. So, like that we will be at the end of this particular subject, you will be knowing these 4 particular aspects, like you will be understanding how to evaluate organization development process and how professionally you can develop organization development, and you will be also knowing what are the different interventions for taking any sort of decision in the organization, and you will be also understanding, you will be able to analyze how to diagnose any situation, any scenario in the organization, particularly these 3 elements like individual, group as well as organization. And finally, you will be able to know how to develop a model for organizational development process. See, like when change happens in the organization or when development happens in the organization, you should able to implement some sort of procedure, then only employees are going to satisfy, employees are going to work accordingly to your organizational requirements. So, that model you will be able to understanding in this particular aspect, right. So, these are the 4 outcomes what we are going to learn at the end of this particular course. So, before going to the subject, let us start with syllabus, like what are our syllabus. So, as usual our syllabus has divided into 2 different modules, and in each module we had 2 units. So, So, the first unit is about introduction. So, in introduction we will be able to understand definition, growth, relevance and historical development of organizational development, and we will be also knowing some of the theories which will be helping us to solve certain problems in the organization. And Levin, one of the father of organizational change, like the theory which has been given by Levin was been taken here, right, with some other theories also. And like we will be understanding the most important thing, like what we should do as a OD practitioner. We will be understanding the role of OD practitioner, the competencies of the OD practitioner, ethical aspects of the OD practitioner, personal views of internal as well as external consultants. So, same as OD practitioner, how they are going to. So, basically the first unit is all about introductory part, like all the concepts were being introduced, like in previously how was organization development, present how it is going on, like that we will be going with a introductory part. Then the second part in the module 1 tells about planned change model. So, this is the model which we are going to discuss in entire subject, right. Like if anyone asks you, if anyone asks us, like if organization want to develop or if organization is changing, now what model you are going to implement for human resources. So, you can simply tell this general model of planned change. So, it consists of 4 parts actually. The first part tells about entering and contracting, the second part tells about diagnosing, third part tells about planning and implementing the change, and the last part tells about institutionalization of the change, right. So, 4 simple points. So, our entire subject consists of these 4 particular points only. So, the first step tells about entering and contracting, like what kind of contract we should take into consideration, what kind of like contract you should build with OD consultant, how to enter into OD consultant. Then about diagnosing, as I discussed with in the course outcomes, we had 3 levels of diagnosing, right, organization level, group level as well as individual level of diagnosing the problem, diagnosing a situation will be done here, right. Then the third point tells about how to implement this particular change, what kind of aspects, elements you should be able to take. So, here plays a very important role of planned change, right. We had 4 different aspects which we should cover while implementing or planning the change. So, those are nothing but interventions, right. So, we had 4 different interventions which will be going in the concept, like human process intervention, human resources intervention, right, techno structural intervention, and finally, the last one is change intervention, like particularly the strategic change. So, these 4 interventions will be helping us to do a planning or implementing any sort of change in the organization. So, module 2 is about these 4 interventions only, right. Module 2 we are going to discuss about these 4 interventions only. Finally, like institutionalizing. No, so we have done everything, how we should implement in the organization. So, there is a certain procedure which has to be followed, that we are discussing in the last step. Then like coming to module 2, as I told you, module 2 is all about interventions, right. So, there are 4 interventions as I was telling. So, first 3 interventions will be covered in first unit and remaining intervention is covered in the second unit, right. So, as I told you, like human process intervention, yes, like how the procedure has to be done, what kind of aspects you should take into consideration while going with the procedure, and techno structural intervention. So, there are some like technical aspects which you should cover while going with these interventions, like process consultant, third party peacemaking, team building, organizational confirmation meeting, intergroup as well as large group interventions, right. And even in techno-structure also we had some sort of interventions, right. And finally, human resource intervention. So, this is known to everyone, because in the second semester of your first MBA you studied about this intervention, but there you have seen that as a discipline, but here we were seeing as a intervention, right. So, in human resource intervention we will be understanding like some of the functions of HRM, like performance management, talent management, workforce diversity and wellness of employees in the organization, right. So, like this we are going to discuss about human resource intervention. So, we will be covering 3 interventions here. The first one is human process, second one is techno-structural, and the third one is human resource intervention. See, like these interventions were not limited here, those were n in number actually to tell, but our author, like we have been following one of the textbook, from that particular textbook or from renewed authors, they were been clearly giving us, right, some of the well established or like well taken by HR managers, those interventions we are discussing. So, this is not limit, we had so many interventions to study. Once you start practicing organization development, you will know all those elements, right. As I told you, the last intervention is like change intervention. You should tell strategic change, not only the change intervention, we should call it as strategic change intervention. So, the scope for strategic change is very high, because of that only we have taken as one full unit here, right. So, in strategic change intervention we will be discussing about transformational change, some characteristics of integrating strategic change, organizational design, culture which is playing very important role in the present human resources, like culture, and continuous change, self designing organizationals, learning organizations. So, learning like even today learning plays a major role as like culture elements for human resource manager, like it is like continuous. So, because of that only they included, if you want to take any sort of strategic change, you should able to go learning aspects, then only you can able to involve some of the activities in the organization, right. Future directions of organization development, trends with organization development in the context of OD. So, like this we will be covering like strategic change concept in the last unit, right. So, I hope you understood the syllabus pattern. So, it is like continuous, as you know. First is like introductory part of organizational development, then we have gone to the actual model, which is very important. So, in actual model we have started planned change model. We had 4 steps there, which we will be discussing in unit 2 in detail. Then we had interventions. So, there are 4 interventions, 3 interventions were been covered in unit 2, module 2 of unit 1, and the last intervention was been covered in unit 2. So, this is how the syllabus we have been grabbed. So, like textbook, like entire syllabus has been taken from Cumming and Christopher, like the textbook title will be Organization Development and Change, it was like Cambridge Learner publications. You can take that particular textbook while preparing this particular subject. Now, we will start with unit 1, like introduction to organizational development. Okay. So, first we will start with what is organizational development. So, before going to the concept, first we should understand what is organizational development. Okay. See, when you heard this particular subject like title organizational development, No, you will get into your mind of production, right. So, most of the people think that, so this subject is related to production, right, but we were studying in human resource management. This was studied as a part of human resource management. Now, why? What was the reason? So, say like for example, if you are developing an organization, you may tell sir, like product has to be developed, sir, like. So, production, some changes in the process has to be done, some changes in the quality. So, whatever you tell, that was related to production, yes, that was related to production. Then why HR? What we do, what HR managers do in this organizational development, right. So, for this you should able to understand like what was the link of development of an organization with human resources, right. So, we should talk about employees. I hope everyone knows how technology is developing, how globalization makes an impact on technology. Beyond all this, one important element, I mean one important resource which we were not taking into consideration is like employees. You should believe that if your organization want to develop something, it would be product, it would be process, it would be quality or some other thing. No, who should give this idea? So, this should be given by the employees. The idea which anything that should be given by employee. So, in organizational development procedure or in organizational development process, the important role lies on employees. So, you should make employees understand. So, not only organizational development, even in times of change. So, small change if you want to do in an organization, you should ask your employee to accept for that particular change. You should first make your employee to accept for the development. So, that happens only with this process. So, organization development is not limited to production department, right. It is mostly related to human resource. Like when government announced this nationalization of banks, I hope everyone knows most of the banks were merged. So, what happens if there are two banks? So, first bank will have one sort of policies, second bank will have another sort of policies, rules will be different, procedures will be different, like employee, there are so many difference in one person to another person, one bank to another bank. Now, you are trying to merge this. So, because of some development, right, because of some development a government want to merge. The first problem comes with employees, right, the first problem comes with employees. So, first you should make them accept for the change which was coming in this particular procedure. It can be merge, it can be acquisition, it can be any sort of development, whatever. It should have employee acceptance. So, how you can accept your employee, how you can make your employee to accept to that particular process, to that particular procedure? Only through organizational development process. So, the answer is like if you know the general model of planned change, you can easily solve this problem, right. I hope you came to understand that. So, how organization development links with HR, links in this particular function. With that definition, with that particular introduction, let us understand some of the definitions which was been given by different authors, sorry, different management experts, right. So, the first definition which was been given by Box, Like OD is a planned process of change. Organization development is a planned process of change in an organizational culture through the utilization of behavior science technology, research and behavior science theories, right. So, it is a planned process of change in the organizational culture. So, it lies on organizational culture itself. What mean by culture? Like people, right. So, planned process lies on its culture, its employees, its process, right. So, the procedure how it was going on. Now, for that this OD should use behavioral science technologies, research and some theories. So, you will understand what are those technologies, what is that research, what are those theories, right. And the second definition which was been given by France. So, it refers to long range effort improving an organizational problem solving capabilities. So, organization development refers to a long range efforts which will be improving an organizational problem solving capabilities and its abilities to cope up with the changes in the external environment. I hope everyone knows most of the problem comes with external environment only. So, that can be overcome with this particular organizational development procedure. And here also you can understand like internal or external behavioral scientists. So, you should able to understand how this organizational development process includes in the organization. It all depends upon the behavioral scientist, one who called as an organizational development expert, right. One who understand the changes which is happening in the organization. And the next definition tells about like it is an effect of planned process. See like in most of the definition this word is common. So, you cannot go as your wish, you should go in a planned process and it should be organizational wide, not for one employee, not for one person, not for one department, it is organizational wide. So, managing from top to, so like you may not think that this is only for middle level managers, this is only for low level managers. Like you should also include top level employees, from top level to bottom level, each and every person has to be taken into consideration. Increase organization effectiveness and health through planned intervention. So, here the concept of intervention has been introduced by Backhats. So, like there are some interventions which has to be known, which has to be understood and which has to be carried out. So, those interventions were very, very important. You cannot go as your will, you cannot go as your wish. So, finally, we can conclude that by seeing these definitions, we can simply tell that it is a system wide application of behavior science knowledge to a planned development, improvement and reinforcement of the strategies, structure and process that leads to organizational effectiveness. So, organization development is a system wide application of behavioral science knowledge, as we are discussing about behavioral science like organizational people, how they were going to affect. Then what HR managers are going to do? They are going to take some of the aspects through planned development, improvement and reinforcement of the strategies, structures and procedures that leads to organizational effectiveness. So, ultimate goal of studying our subject is like improving the organizational effectiveness. That happens only through this particular process. So, that was the definition of organization development. Now, let us understand why this is important. Why this is important, like what was the reason for introducing organizational development. So, there are three important aspects which was known for every one of us, like one is like globalization. So, why it was improving? I hope when you see a decade back there was a no term called organization development, but if you see today this is very common in every organization, because you should know that whether development or change, it would be development or it would be change, happens very frequently in the organization, very frequently, not like after 1 year, after 6 months, like very frequently, day by day it was going on. The reason is very simple. These are the three reasons in front of you. So, the first one tells about globalization, the second one tells about information technology, and the third one tells about managerial innovations, right. So, you know, like globalization, what is happening with the globalization, how the businesses were spreading because of this globalization. So, because of this globalization, like number of businesses was been increased like anything, and with that rapid increase, like every organization makes competitive themselves to be in the market, to make competitive among others. Now, if you do not change your product, if you do not give some sort of development, you know what happens, you will be not in the society, you will be not in the customer mind perception. Now, because of this globalization, like businesses were been spreading like anything. So, we required these type of implementation in the organization, right. So, it is very important to understand how the growth is happening in the organization because of this globalization. And the second part tells about information technology. So, information technology, like you see today how the changes happening in information technology, like if you talk about artificial intelligence or if you talk about chat GPT, like it has made a revolutionary in every sector, like not only in businesses particularly, even as a students you are using every day this kind of aspect. If you want to know any sort of information, you are using these sort of elements, and in organization it is like large extent to tell you. So, these technological changes were needed in the organization, like people assume that this technology will decline jobs, but the fact is these improvements will making jobs easy, will making problems, will sorting out problems in an easy manner, like giving a good sort of solution. So, this is very much required in the present organizations, right. And changes in the technology leads to what? Changes in the technology leads to development of the organization, changing your organization structure, procedure, whatever technologies, at least you need to change the technologies, right. So, the another reason for the growth of organizational development is information technology, and to be, you know, like one of the future is like it is widespread, it is widespread. So, automatically what will happen? You cannot stop this organization development, you need to do that. Today you will see one sort of technology, tomorrow it will be not there, there will be another sort of technology, some improvements will happen, some developments will happen. So, it is very much required. And finally, innovation in employees, innovation in people, innovation in managers, management, whatever. So, the innovations were very much required in organization. To understand this, like I hope everyone knows, organizational or every organization thinks of profit. So, profit making is the main motto of organizations. You should know that how people were getting profits today. Like if you trace our history, previously we used to get profits through production, improving more number of products, introducing technology in products. Later, like we have also taken some initiations from pricing, like improving price, giving discounts, different strategies in pricing, like advertisements, branding, so many were there. Okay. You should remember now what is happening. The profits is not through this nowadays. The profits is to like innovations what were being done by employees, right. So, you should able to understand, you should able to give importance to your people. These individuals were telling how the profits has to be improved. They were giving some sort of innovations, they were giving some sort of changes every day, day by day, right. So, for that you should able to understand how that improvements were being going on. Every organization is trying to make out of that. So, like that we should able to understand whether growth and development happens only because of what? Maybe because of globalization, maybe because of information technology, maybe because of managerial innovation. Then you should able to understand the history of OD. See, history of the OD can be seen in 5 different phases. Like the first phase tells about laboratory training, the second phase tells about action research survey method, the third phase tells about participative management or like normative approach, and the fourth stage tells about quality of work life, and the last one tells about strategic change. But you should remember one point here, like laboratory training which has started in 1950s, okay. But today it was there, and the action research model which started after laboratory training, today it was there, right. So, whatever phase is there, like it was not left out, organizations were implementing that change which happens in the organization development process. So, the first one is like laboratory training. So, this is started by Levin. So, Levin is one of the, so Levin is the one who started, okay, the word itself like organization development or change management. He was like father of change management. Okay. So, what he has done is, he is the one who started with his group of researchers, he want to establish training institutes for people, and he named it as laboratory training. So, first experiment he has done in American Jews. So, what he has done is, he identified some of the well experts in America, like one of the category called American Jews, and in that category also like the topmost people was been taken as a priority. So, all these group of 5 people was been taken, and they were asked to tell how to develop society. They were asked in a discussion, like some sort of expert panel was being done with that people, and they were asked to tell how to develop American society. So, they given so many inputs, they have taken all those inputs, and they asked to like okay, they can go. But you should remember, like after completing of experiment, this experiment, like it has taken much important role actually, because whatever outcomes he was taken to the society, that community of the Jews. So, they went to again other communities, and they told that this is going to happen in the coming future, right. So, like that they started with that small experiment that has been revolutionary, because like people thought that some developments will happen because of the small activity, and it has happened regularly. Then after that it has been changed into T groups, So, the government has taken that initiation. After seeing the development, government himself asked Levin to take care of implementing these to every business organizations. So, they started implementing this, like they were like national laboratories actually. In America, they started it as a national laboratories, and they introduced these 3 groups, spread like anything all over the American, all over the country they started. And today if you see, they were been named as team building activities. Okay, from Levin laboratory. So, it started from Levin's laboratory, then to each and every society, then finally it has been gone to organizations, each and every organization. Today I hope everyone knows, like we had team building activities, team building exercises in the organization. Then after that, like in the next phase, we had an action research or survey feedback. So, you should able to understand, like particularly with the help in the management or in our organization development, whatever you want to tell, whatever you want to give output, it should be done some sort of research, right, and that has to be done with surveys. So, it may be employees. So, the surveys may be with your employees, surveys may be with your customers or any other stakeholders, right, or any other stakeholders. So, you cannot tell your own view, your own perception, it should be from the perception of different people, right. Then like after that, like it is like participative management, or we should also call it as nominative approach. So, the scale has been changed, like it is used to called as a liquid scale. So, participative management was came into existence, where leadership skills were going very important. So, they should able to understand what kinds of leadership would be there. So, you cannot go directly and tell how the work has to be done. You should able to understand what sort of leadership. You should remember, like depending upon the situation, leadership style changes. Depending upon particular activity, the leadership style changes, right. That has to be known. And you know, while we are going with this surveys or feedback, like you cannot ask simply yes or no questions. We used to tell it as 5 scale. So, the 5 scale model which has been developed by Liquid has been taken into consideration. It can be like satisfactory, highly satisfactory, neutral, like not satisfactory, highly dissatisfied. So, the scale has to be changed. So, the 5-point scale we used to tell it as like liquid scale, that has to be taken into consideration. Then in the 4th part, we are seeing quality of work life. So, I hope you understood the importance of employee was been coming when stage by stage changes. So, in 1970s, 1980s, you should remember how the employee was being taken much role, right. So, quality of his own lifestyle, his own life were being taking off, not only work, okay, like his own personal life was being taken into much consideration. So, the companies developed so many process, the employees developed so many, like the HR managers particularly, they developed so many methods, models to improve this quality of work life, right. And finally, today and forever it will be strategic change. So, you should remember present, like every element was been taking such important role. So, that is about our evolution of management, like organization development and process, right.